Welcome to the African Treasures Youth Forum. I'm Adora Okeke, your host. The Youth Forum focuses on issues that concern youth of the African descent all over the world. The Youth Forum is jointly produced by the Nigerian Television Authority and Canopy Corporation. Our topic today is Nigerian Americans, children born here in the U.S. to Nigerian parents. I'll let my guests introduce themselves.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm fine.
My name is Ehivema Aimyewu. I'm a PhD student at Clark Atlanta University. My parents are from Benin City, Edo State, Nigeria, and I was born in Kent, Ohio. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Hey, how you doing? My name is Chrislyn Okoma. I'm 19 years old. I was born in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm also a student at Clark Atlanta University studying television broadcasting, and my parents are from Abia State, Nigeria. Thank you.
Thanks. Are you proud to proclaim your Nigerian heritage in the presence of your American friends?
Well, I have to say I am very proud to claim my heritage. It is who I am. Just recently, I was able to understand my culture, understand where I'm from, so I can hold my head up high and say that I'm a proud Nigerian American today.
I'm very proud to be Nigerian American. I mean, a lot of my friends look up to me for resources on Africa. We African clothes all the time. I contribute to buying African CDs. We watch African new movies daily as a form of entertainment. And I also host a website, edofolks.com, for anyone who wants to do research on Edo, Benin Kingdom, or Nigeria, or Africa at large. So I'm very proud to be Nigerian American.
Now, have you guys always been proud? Were you teased, ridiculed as children growing up in school?
Well, I know he was, born in America, but, I was born in America, and I've been living in America for all my life. I visited Nigeria, but I've been here. And as a child, it was hard for me because I would have to deal with people telling me that I didn't really know who I was. Like, my last name was Okoma, okay, but you are an American because you have an English accent, so you're not Nigerian or you're not African. And I would get made fun of, my last name, but I've grown to understand who I was. So yes, all the time.
What about you, Ehi?
Well, I was very fortunate to be raised in Nigeria. And,
but you were born here?
I was born here in Kent, Ohio. It's very stupid for a person of African descent not to be proud of his African ancestry,
right.
Culturally, historically, biblically, as people who began culture and civilization. And it's a wonderful thing to be African,
I know myself, I grew up in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I have an older brother. He's 19 now. No one ever thought we were Nigerian.
Right.
And if it were known that we were Nigerian, people would say, oh, you're not African because you don't look this way or you don't talk this way. And we try to convince them. And then we'd say, all right, look at our last names. My first name is Adora, and my brother's first name is Obi Ajulu. So, of course, off the bat, people are like, oh, why do you have an African name and you're not African? As far as being made fun of, he was a cool kid. I wasn't too geeky myself. So people didn't really make fun of us because we weren't, ones to be teased. Do Nigerian Americans identify more with Nigerian heritage or American heritage?
Well, I definitely think that, I'm speaking on terms behalf of myself, and I definitely think it's harder to live the Nigerian heritage when you've been living in America. You've been surrounded by the people, the everyday lives of people, what they do, what they think, how they live. When you've been surrounded by that, then it's really hard to pick up on that culture unless you've been taken to the country, Nigeria itself, and live there. So, yeah, I think it's hard to live that culture, and I've been, more influenced by the Americanism, so.
Now, coming from the continent, it's easy to be African. I mean, I eat their food, I live there, basically. But the average African American, if I may speak for them, is difficult.
Nigerian American?
Nigerian American.
Okay.
It's difficult because many of them have never been to their country. I've met some who have never been encouraged to speak their language. Some of them are shy. because Africa is portrayed in the media or in the movies as
negatively.
It's negatively as a third world nation or continent. It's barbaric, it's backward. And so peer pressure, how do they choose their friends? How would their friends look at them? So they try to shy away from it.
Well, I think I'll speak for some Nigerian Americans that I know. I have a few classmates who mother is African American, father is Nigerian. And only way I knew this is because someone called Ro on the first day of school and last name was Indom. And I said, "Oh, you're Nigerian?" And she said, "No, I'm not." And I said, "Yeah, your father is, right?" She said, "No." Well, she said, "Well, okay, well, yeah." She said, "Don't tell anybody." And I thought, oh, poor thing. But she wasn't raised with her father, and anyway. But I think a lot of Nigerian Americans identify, who haven't been to Nigeria for a long period of time, identify with American heritage. I know I did for a very long time, right. And just getting into high school and doing things with you, Chrislyn, that's how I've gotten more in touch with the Nigerian side, wanting to learn the language and being part of, Deja Vu and Niger community things. Other than that, I don't think a lot of Nigerian Americans identify with Nigerian heritage.
Now, it's a good thing to identify with it, but you can't blame these kids.
No, you can't at all.
I blame their parents, because it's the way you raise your child, that's the direction they will go. So if you're ashamed of it, you don't teach them the language, the culture, the music, you can't blame them for running away from what they don't know.
And not even so much being ashamed, just not thinking of it as that important.
Right.
I guess as you grow, you realize how much culture is lost. Some other people have come here to America over the centuries, Irish, Dutch, Hispanic people, Asians, and it kind of just goes off, and everyone speaks the same language, English, and English is a wonderful language, and American culture is fine, but it's also good to have a root, and to know where you came from, just in case you have some kids and they'd like to know their own heritage.
Right.
And a student, I used to be a teacher, teaching high school, and a student made a very good point. He said, "Of what importance is Africa?" He said, "Look at my world history textbook. I mean, you can read about a chapter of a couple of pages about histories of other people. But when it comes to Africa, it's just a page and a half, a map of a continent, 2 artifacts, and that's it."
Exactly.
So,
well, hold that thought for me. We'll be right back with more in the African Treasures Youth Forum with Nigerian Americans. Welcome back to the African Treasures Youth Forum, jointly produced by the Nigerian Television Authority and Canopy Corporation. You can view African Treasures Youth Forum every day, 24 hours, at www.africantreasurestv.com. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We just finished up talking about identifying with Nigerian and American culture. Okay. Now, how does it conflict growing up in American society, being raised by Nigerian parents?
Well, it's always been hard for me. I grew up with 2 sisters, and we're all girls. My parents, there's a stereotype about Nigerian parents is they're very strict. Mm-hmm. And my parents, well, I would label them as being very strict. And that's because they just, from the background that they had in Nigeria, they brought it here, and they were raised in such a good household, with good parents, and when they came to America, this is how they want to raise their children, and it was hard for me because, I'd be influenced by the Americanism, things that I saw every day in school, outside of school, and I bring it home. But my parents, they value our culture so much, they didn't want us to go out and do everything other American children did. So yeah, it was very important, but at the same time, it was hard for me, growing up in as an American.
Well, I didn't see, there's some contradictions, but what I normally tell my friends is that when it comes to family and culture, I do it the African way. Mm-hmm. When it comes to politics and money, I do it the American way. The African culture being the oldest culture, it's perfect to me. All that is left is how to improve our economy, how to deal with money. Now, our parents are usually strict, but it's for a good thing.
Right.
They want their children to grow up in the way that is morally right and is respectable by society. Another difference is it seems America is more of a materialistic culture,
yes,
and individualistic, which is basically forbidden by African standard. We live as a group, you know. Your brother's problem or your brother's success is your success. But that doesn't mean you should be lazy. You should also add to that success that we might be able to accomplish much together.
Well, I think, in my personal opinion, to have grown up, I'm speaking for parents, to grown up in Nigerian culture and then to birth kids here in the U.S., you have to be very understanding that, you know, your children, you have them for how many hours at home would you actually sit and talk to them, and, you know, they learn what's going on culturally, and then the amount of hours they spend in extracurricular activities at school with different people in American culture, American music, American TV, American books. That's what they know. So to also be teaching them Nigerian culture, you have to be understanding and patient, right, and kind of a little bit lenient, because, you know, you do have a Nigerian American that you're raising. As much as you'd like to keep culture kind of going down in line and have them be everything you were and grow up how you grew up, you have to understand, you know, you have an American child at home too.
Right.
That's true, but you have to consider, like what you said, the odds are against them. You have two people versus the entire society. So they have to look for a way to have a competitive edge on their side. And that's where the little bit of strictness come from.
Yes.
As long as they're not abusive, it's okay.
What can we do for our country in Nigeria? As far as African Americans, what can we do here and even over there? What?
Well, I will say the first thing we must do is speak that language. The language is one of the strongest part of the culture that any group of people can get themselves prepared for, whatever you want to say. Because if kids don't speak that language, there's no bridge between where they are now and their origin back home. I've met students in school when I was in college, just because they took French or Italian at school, they want to visit Italy, they want to visit France. Mm-hmm. They want to see if the language they've learned in class can be utilized with the French people.
Yeah.
Even in sporting events, you find out that even though they've not been to France or Italy, they support them. There's this oneness, and they're just Americans, you know. So if Nigerian parents can succeed in teaching their kids that language, the sky's the limit, because no matter what they do in this country, politically, economically, they will always want to go back and invest a little. Yes. It's shameful to rely on the United Nations or UNICEF all the time for economic problems in Africa, but I believe if we could speak our language, just 20 to 50% of us, a lot of African issues will be solved.
I agree. Well, can you hold that thought again? I'm sorry. Join us back with our next segment. We'll be right back. We'll be right back.
What do you think of that?
What do you think?
Straight cut. Straight. Fine.
5-4.
Welcome back to the African Treasures Youth Forum. In the last segment, we finished up talking about what we could do for Africa. And Ehi, you described that it's very important to bridge the gap between Americans and Nigerians, and just basically learning the language so you can feel more at home and more comfortable with Nigeria. Kristen, what do you think about what we can do for Nigerians?
Well, I definitely agree with what he said. Learning the language is very important. But another thing is that we as Nigerian Americans, we should work to avail ourselves, learn to communicate and relate ourselves with people of the Nigerian descent. Learn the language from them, relate ourselves with them, learn what's going on politically while we're here in America, so that when we go back, we can work together. There are many people who are unemployed, many businesses are tarnished and torn. We can also work with family businesses. Family businesses is really one thing that helps to make things better in Nigeria. My father, he has a family business, and he goes back every year to Nigeria to help better our family. I mean, when I think of Nigeria, I think of my family. So what better way would be to, other than to go back and help your family, you know?
As next question, Ehi, I know that you grew up in Nigeria and you're fluent in Nigerian language, right? Mm-hmm. Now, Kristen, you grew up here just like me.
Right.
Do you speak Igbo?
No, I don't speak Igbo fluently. I understand the language, but I would like to say that I am learning it, and I'm learning to speak it fluently. So when somebody asks you that, you don't say no, like I just did. You just the better way to say would be I'm learning, you know, because you want to always let people know that you're learning. You never want to let people know your downside, you know. So it's important that people understand I am learning the language.
Now, don't just say you're learning. Also put some effort to it to make sure you're learning.
And that is correct. You know, you have to put effort. You have to familiarize yourself. You have to live it. It's not just about learning. You have to live it. And that's the most important thing.
If I may add, I would recommend that we also get involved in telecommunications technology, which is making the world a smaller place to live in. We can't just focus all our minds and attention here in America. We should also reach out in establishing our own businesses across. There's a lot of export and import going on now. So Africa is known for raw materials, and I know America needs a lot of that. We can't just sit down and let other people do the export and import for us. We have to go make sure we do that, and that's a way of making the economy grow.
That's very true. Back to the language. I myself, I don't speak Igbo, and I can understand it. It seemed like when I was younger, I understood it just fine.
Right.
And as time went on, I realized I only know phrases. Not always the positive ones either. The ones when, you know, your parents get real mad and they start to ramble off. Yeah, those are the phrases that I know. So if someone says speak Igbo, most likely I'll say something like, I'm about to beat you with the stick if you don't put that down. And they'll look at me and say, oh, okay. Just recently, like the past 3 or 4 years, I'd never seen Igbo written down. That's a language in Nigeria of the Igbo tribe. I'd never seen it written down. And it's so much easier, you know, for Nigerian Americans. We always hear Igbo being spoken to us, but you rarely ever see it written. So it's so much easier to now learn it and, you know, learn how to say it and kind of where each word stops. Because to my ears, Igbo is just a flow. I'm just taking every single thing they're putting in, everything they're saying to me, I just take as one word. Honestly, you know, to always hear language and never see it. So when I read it, I saw how each word was broken down and, you know, what each word was. Yeah. Do you have any interest in going back to Nigeria to live permanently?
Yes.
Honestly?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been telling my friends in the next 5 years I should be back in Nigeria.
Okay.
And I pray to God that comes true. I might just come back to visit. We're here to learn what makes the world tick, you know, economically, politically, and we've learned a lot. And there's nothing as good as taking back what you've learned to where you came from. So that others can share from that knowledge. And hopefully someday we can grow to a level where others want to come and learn from us.
Yes.
You know?
You, Kristen?
I'm not gonna say yet. I'm not gonna say yet permanently, but I would like to go and live for a long term, maybe like 2 years. This year, my family, we were supposed to go to Nigeria, and I would get the experience. I haven't been since I was 10 years old. I've only been once. So of course, yes, I would like to go back to Nigeria and get the experience. You know, my family, they're gonna see a different me, of course, since I was 10. But I would like to go back and say I'm still the same person. I'm still that Nigerian girl that you saw. You know, I don't want them to think I'm just too Americanized. So yes.
Well, I want to. I'll definitely go back there to visit. As far as living there permanently, No, I probably won't. I'm only because I like this country, and I like that's what I'm familiar with. Not saying there's anything wrong with Nigeria, and I don't think there's anything negative or wrong in saying that I don't want to live in Nigeria. It's it's a preference. But I definitely take my children there and my husband there if he's not from Nigeria, and we'll live there for a while, but not permanently.
Right.
Maybe when I get old, my kids can take care of me in in Nigeria.
Instead of putting you in the nursing home, right?
Yeah, they can just take me home to where my grandparents are. But I might even send my children there. I know a lot of Nigerians send their children there.
For high school?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, thank you guys.
Thank
you for watching the African Treasures Youth Forum. We hope you join us again for another episode.